what simple, modern, clean and other client terms actually mean. Whether you've been working with clients for a few months or a few years, you've probably realized a certain struggle designers endure while trying to communicate with clients. On the one hand, you have us, the designers, who are very familiar with the design process and the specific terms. And on the other hand, there's the clients, who are often new to this experience and don't know the specifics. As the professionals, we need to guide clients through the entire process and break down the barrier of them versus us. But during this process, you might sometimes get hit with feedback that baffles you. To deal with that, here's my mini handbook that shares common phrases from clients and my interpretation of what they're actually trying to say. Make it pop. The translation sounds something like this. The client is actually saying your design overall is pretty good, but it lacks that hook that grabs viewers' attention and makes them take action right away. You should rethink certain key elements like the hero area and focus on a powerful punchline. Additionally, you should rethink the colour scheme so the call to actions have a very distinct look compared to the other graphical elements. So something along those lines. Of course, I'm reading a lot into it, and really it depends if you have any previous feedback and also what type of site it is and so on. In general, it refers to the site's atmosphere and impact. Let's take a look at a good example. Why does this pop? You'd assume it's because of the vivid colour scheme, the illustrations, the typography, and indeed those are the elements that make it stand out. But the main idea is about making an impact. It's about a website's character. Obviously, using the same colour scheme or illustrations won't work well on a corporate website for a Fortune 500 company. Nor would it work on a funeral house's website. But the same principles can be used to achieve your goal. Let's take a look at a counterexample. Can you figure out why this doesn't pop? There's nothing horribly wrong in this design. It follows a basic layout, it has a decent colour scheme, it has all the functionality the client wanted, yet he wasn't happy about it. And that's because it lacked a real hero in the design. It didn't feature anything in particular. There wasn't anything that would impact and draw people's attention. Chances are if you visited once, you couldn't remember it if asked about it. There's nothing here that attracts users. We have these 3 black and white images here which are seriously outdated, not to mention the pictures themselves are quick, cheesy and overused. In the hero area we have this generic team which again is just bland, boring and without substance. This grey gradient is a terrible idea as well. I can't think of a situation where this type of gradient would work in a hero area. And then this headline of 30 years of combined legal experience is written in a plain, lackluster font with a far too light grey. And about the hero area, and this is where I'm going to end, we have at least 3 things that fight for your attention here. The read more button, the images and the video on the right. It's far too much for this area. I could go on, but as you see, the site has some major flaws, even though at the surface it doesn't look all that bad. The client obviously can't recognise each point as I did, and even if he could, he probably doesn't want to do that. Instead, he puts it simply, it doesn't pop. To further illustrate my point, let me show you some other websites that do stand out. These are a bit more serious, so you won't think the clients are looking for cartoonish designs when they use that expression. So the first site is about commercial investments. How corporate can you get? Looking at it, although it's not as in your face as the first example, it's still miles away from our counter-example. Let's talk about it in just a few words. Beautiful yet simple hero area with a perfect gradient up top that allows for great legibility on those 3 lines of text. This is very effective. Headline, 3 lines of text, call to action. It doesn't get much cleaner than this. Lots of white space everywhere. At the top, in this statement to investors on the right. Nice use of images, great font choice and combination. Just look at the amount of line height. This is very aesthetically pleasing and quite inviting to read. Okay, enough about it. I hope you understand why this pops. Let's look at another example. My first impression is that this is a serious, professional, upscale company. I can immediately tell that by looking at the site for only a few seconds. This definitely stands out, so I won't be going into other details. Now, back to our example. How does it make you feel? Does it shout out premium? Does it impress or stand out in any way? No. Thus the impression, it doesn't pop. Just in case you're thinking pragmatically about what makes these two websites stand out versus the other one, I'll give you a quick list of points. Beautiful imagery, custom graphics, great typography, lots of white space. Moving on to another term clients use, make it modern. It needs to have a modern feel to it. What does that mean? Examples are our friend, so let's take a look at a couple of modern websites first. This is a beautiful design with loads of white space, great typography, and lots of attention to detail. There's a lot to discuss here, but we'll only focus on the main menu. What's so special about a menu anyway? It's actually only text, so they didn't even design anything, right? Oh no, this is actually a great example of how you should design a menu. First, the nuance. It's not your everyday black, it's actually 3A4046, a nice dark grey. Blog and Contact have a different colour from the first three items because they're not as important as the structure of the site. What is important is Start a Project, which features a 2-pixel border around it so as to guide the user immediately to it. The hover state for this button is a beautiful red nuance, and if you look closely you'll see there's a nice subtle effect. The button doesn't immediately change colour, it eases into it. If we look at the CSS code, we'll see this. Transition all 0.2 seconds, ease 0 seconds. This means there's a subtle transition from one state to another. The red button doesn't immediately appear, instead it eases itself in. Small things make a big difference. So I won't talk about the rest of it since we all know it's a modern website. Let's see the opposite. What's not modern? These are not modern by any means, they're actually rubbish. We can break each one down to see what's what, but that's not the point. Usually when your client says your design is not modern, it means it looks like it was made in 2002. So don't try and figure out a recipe to improve it. Don't think changing the font or colour scheme will make a difference. Sure, those would help, but you need to completely rethink it. What you need to do is watch this course at least 2 times, then get back to work. It means you need to study the basics again. Let's move on to make it warmer. What does that mean? Again, example time. We already talked about this. The client is talking about the site's atmosphere. In general, if you want your website to impress and pack a punch, you need to add character to it. Textures, interesting colours, great typography are a few of the ingredients you need to mix and match in order to get the job done. Pragmatically, if you get this comment, you should do 2 things immediately. Check and see if you've left the background pure white. If so, change that immediately. Secondly, add more detail whenever possible. Even if it's in small doses in small areas, do it and it will improve your design. That's the key here. You don't have to read too much into their literal words. You have to figure out what they're trying to say and then take steps to improve the design. Reds, browns, yellows also help, but that's not a rule by any means. If you're making a ski lodge website, you might use lots of sky blues, or you might use some rich reds and browns to create a luxurious feeling. If you're able to create an atmosphere like this one, then the client will surely consider it warmer. So that's about it regarding deciphering what your clients are saying. Make it more fun, more creative, more vibrant. They all mean virtually the same thing. Your website doesn't impress. If it lacked functionalities that were in the brief, the client would point them out. But if all you get are some phrases that don't translate into real-world action that you can perform, then your design is simply subpar. And then it's no longer the client's task to help you create a good site, it's on you to further refine your skills.